Welcome to Make It Make Sense. We are Marlene and Paulina, two research assistants at the Obama Institute for Transnational American Studies at JGU Mainz.
In this podcast, we take you on a deep dive into the world of our study program. Together with guests from all throughout the discipline, we talk about everyday societal topics you might not have guessed are connected to our field.
Join us in making sense of the issues that surround us and, most importantly, have fun listening. Is this what I think it is?
It might just be.
We're back, y'all!
We are back for season 2. Welcome back to Make It Make Sense, everyone. We're so happy to be in the studio again.
It's incredible, and thank you to everyone who tuned into our last season. We got just so many kind and supportive messages, and we're just overjoyed with it all, I think. Yeah,
we had so much fun with the first season, and the second season is...
even better.
Even better, yeah. I was going to say, we have amazing episodes lined up for you guys.
Yeah.
Amazing guests, and we're so excited to jump in again.
Yes, we're genuinely so happy to be here.
This is so exciting. Yes. And as you might remember, or maybe you don't because it's been a while, but we wrapped up our first season of the show with an episode on academic writing, right?
Exactly. And we thought to make this transition into season 2 as smooth as possible, we're going to pick up right where we left off. So we're going to start the second season with something even more stressful. And that's thesis writing.
Yeah, sorry, you guys. We doubled down on the stress of finishing a degree. Yeah, but truly, probably the most daunting task. I mean, we amped it up last time, right? With academic writing, and we've been like, oh, it's so crazy and stressful. Thesis writing is arguably even more stressful than worse.
Because
worse
with academic writing, we kind of counted everything into that. Even if you just have like a 200-word essay that is due for, I don't know, active participation or something. But now we're going to double down and look towards the most stressful.
Tackle the real thing. Yeah. And even if you haven't started studying at a university yet, or you haven't been in college generally, you probably will have encountered writing some form of an argumentative paper in high school, for example.
Right. So for this episode, to be too dry, and just tips that you have heard and probably, let's be honest, will hear from us again at some point, we're going to walk you through a real-life example so that you might get some insights into a topic as well, meaning that this episode is actually going to be a bit anecdotal, so we're going to try really hard not to get too sciencey. Bear with us, please.
Yeah. I think it's going to work out, though. You're going to see it's going to be really interesting.
We did the thinking.
We did the thinking, yeah. No, we actually thought about it, and I think we're approaching this topic from the right angle to hopefully, give you some insights. So why don't we jump right in, right? Yeah. So how does it start? How do we start writing our final thesis? It starts with inspiration.
Yeah.
What a wonderful word. And inspiration can find you pretty much anywhere, right?
Right. And it doesn't even necessarily has to be something that you already have in mind. However, more often than not, that kind of is the case. You have some predisposition towards a topic.
Yeah. Best case scenario, you do have.
Yeah. But sometimes, inspiration just finds you.
Yeah, sometimes it just happens. And as an example, now we're revealing what we're actually planning on doing right now. Because as an example, drum roll, we chose Marlene's bachelor's thesis. And the final product was called A Black Feminist Reading of Mothering. How do you read it? Because it's
Mothering, M in parentheses.
M in parentheses, that's right. Because I can't hear it when I read it out loud. Exactly. So it's Mothering, and the M is in parentheses, in Alice Walker's The Color Purple and Toni Morrison's A Mercy. So basically what we're going to do right now is we're going to break it all down from how you started, how the inspiration found you, all the way to, the final product and how you got there. So let's jump in. And of course, the first question I'm going to ask you, because I'm going to be the one
She's basically interviewing me now.
Interrogating you about this. How did it all start? How did you get started with this topic?
Well, honestly, it was pure chance because we read A Mercy in a colloquium, which is part of the course plan here at JGU towards the end of your bachelor's degree. And I loved it from the get-go, which is rather rare, if I might add, since I'm a very picky reader.
Yeah, you are.
I am. I read a lot. I said it in the first season. It's my number one hobby, but I do have very strong opinions on pretty much everything. So just the fact that I liked Morrison's work kind of spoke volumes already for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then, of course, because the main or your main angle was motherhood. How did you settle on that?
I actually didn't at first. It was clear to me that I wanted to do gender study focus and something on like intersectionality and the body, since that is also my main research area. So I started reading, and I stumbled upon a discussion of othering and mothering, which is very prominent in the context of Morrison's work.
Yeah, that's true. So you actually followed the suggested order, right?
For once in my life.
Once in your life.
I did research first.
Exactly. So, we're walking our listeners through this, and this is actually, if we're talking like suggested order, and especially because we've touched on, you mentioned the colloquium that we had. This is how, and this is actually what the colloquium does, right? It kind of, again, walks you through the different kinds of literature and how to analyze literature and all of that. So, kind of teaches you, again, how to approach writing a thesis and how you get started. So in terms of suggested order, that would be the right thing to do. Yes. So 10 out of 10 so far.
Thank you.
And at this point, if I remember your process correctly, because I was kind of like,
around.
Already. Yeah, I was around. I was there. Right, you settled on The Color Purple as your second novel. And yes, what did you find because you said you did some research, what did you find in the scholarly literature to get you to make that connection to motherhood, or between the two novels?
Yeah, because that is where it now gets kind of topical, because I had read scholarly work that fell into the topic of Black feminism, which is rather obvious if you choose Morrison as a study object. And in that context, I then stumbled upon the figure of the other mother, which is relatively firmly based in Native African culture. However, as a result of slavery, the concept kind of migrated in the U.S. American context.
Yeah, as so many things did. So I to our listeners, I read your work.
Yeah.
And let me just say, I had the honor of proofreading it before you handed it in. So let me try to summarize it a little bit, and correct me if I'm wrong here. But the other mother is a woman with non-biological ties to a child who basically helps in the upbringing of them, right?
Exactly. And their focus is really on like community-based child rearing, and the person doing basically the care work and raising the child can but does not necessarily have to be related to that child. And that then is especially interesting in the context of slavery, because a lot of the times family were broken up, so women in quarters would kind of do the care work for children in those same quarters, and that's how this Native African concept contextualizes itself in a U.S. American background, basically. Yeah.
That makes sense. That's fascinating. But The Color Purple, for those who haven't read it, isn't set during slavery, meaning the figure of the other mother not only migrated but evolved over time, right?
Exactly. And at its core, it still works the same. So we still have that non-biological mother that cares for a child. However, these kind of intricacies I figured out as time progressed and as my writing progressed. Honestly, I read, and then read some more. But yeah, so we still have that figure, but it kind of takes on, slightly different role, I'd say, but it's still very present. And motherhood is also something that is very, very present in The Color Purple. So yeah, I made that connection first, and then basically traced the development of the concept of the other mother and the ideas of mothering throughout these two novels.
Yeah, that's great. So actually by that point, you probably knew that you were on the right path to success. And just as a small thing maybe for our listeners, the thing you mentioned with you read, and then read some more in, how do we put this? Professional terms? I don't know. Technical terms. This would be a literature review, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because that's kind of like the first step towards approaching a thesis is doing research. So you did all that.
Yeah.
You were at this point. And so the next step was finding a research question, right?
Exactly. And for that, I obviously knew I wanted to use that feminist lens. And then I was thinking, okay, so we have the intersectionality, we have the body, because with motherhood, the body is always kind of like in discussion. And then we have specifically Black feminism and motherhood. And I was thinking, okay, how does motherhood or the act of mothering a child actually function in these novels? And I pretty soon then came across kind of the idea of self-determination, which just immediately kind of made sense to me, so that motherhood works as a vehicle towards self-determination. And at that point, what I did and what I do suggest listeners to do, you get an advisor involved. Because if you have like kind of your baseline, you could get them involved prior in its process, obviously, especially if you already have like a vague idea, and honestly keep talking to your advisor the entire time, because I think it's really helpful. However, for me, it was that specific point. So I knew it was determination. And I talked to my advisor.
Yeah.
And we just talked it through. I explained all my thinking processes.
The thinkies.
And I had the thinkies. And got their advice. And that is also when I realized that I have to make a greater distinction between these two novels, because like you so correctly mentioned already, they're not set in the same historical period. So yeah, it wouldn't work to just throw them into like the same direction, right? So yeah, these were my next steps. My research questions was, how does it work in the context of self-determination and feminism? And then, yeah, I had very long talks with my advisor. Shout out to him.
We're not going to disclose who he is. Maybe we can just stay on that topic real quick of the advisor, because just from maybe a listener's perspective, because of course by the time we wrote our bachelor's theses, we both worked at the Obama Institute. So we were around, we knew people, and I think it was definitely easier for us to approach people and to kind of like, know how to do that. But for someone who maybe doesn't or is not in that position, how do we, or what would you, what would we both say to someone who maybe doesn't know how to approach that, how to find an advisor? Yeah.
I think there are multiple ways. For one, everyone who works at the Institute has like their own website, CV thingy where research interests are listed. So one thought for me would be just go through that, see what matches your interests. But then also, and that is now kind of more a personal thing, but don't underestimate like the chemistry.
Yeah.
That sounds
That's
weird,
a big
maybe.
part of it,
but
actually, yeah.
If you have a lecturer in one of your classes who might not be like 100% your topic, but still a little bit, and you get along with them really, really well, I think that is so helpful. If you get along with your advisor, plus maybe already have written a paper with them, because it's just easier to then kind of navigate this whole process if you're on the same page and you also know what they expect in writing.
Absolutely. That was the case for me, for example. I also chose, at least for my second supervisor, I chose someone who I did take classes with already and wrote several papers. So I had gotten feedback from them on the stuff I wrote.
You know how they feedback.
Yeah.
What they keep an eye out for.
Yeah. And also, I mean, the first class I had with them was maybe my, I don't know, second, third semester in my bachelor's. So the feedback I got from them then, I tried to put that into practice for my next paper. And then my writing kind of evolved over time. And I mean, even if that's not the case, if you had one class with one instructor and you wrote a good paper and you were happy with that and the chemistry matches and it does kind of sort of match topic, like research focus wise, go for it. Approach them, ask them. Write an email. Go to office hours.
And don't be shy. I think that's the big thing. Don't be shy. Really, you have to show that initiative. Unfortunately, for all the introverts here, you do have to talk to them.
Yeah, and believe me,
they're nice.
I think
they're nice people.
we know the struggle. At least I do of being an introvert. But it works out to your advantage at the end of the day. Yeah. So all right. Getting back to where we were. Exactly. Right. So you had your research question in mind. And when we have our research question, we can then reread or rethink our study object, maybe, anew. And from there on out, the thesis kind of develops. So, it kind of like continues from there the same way that it started, right? You read, and then you read some more, and then you read even more, and until it kind of comes together. So let's move on maybe to the writing process. Yeah,
because first of all, shout out to last season.
Shout out to us.
We're not gonna get into like all the writing tips and tricks here. You can just listen to the last episode. But what I can say about the writing process is that you will alter your original thesis over and over again. Yep. And dare I say, you absolutely need to do that.
Definitely.
Because that's the thing. You have to not only evolve over time with your writing, but also evolve your thesis as it progresses. So that's really important, I think, to mention right here.
And if I may say so myself, I think that's something that I didn't quite want to believe when I started out in like academic writing, because I was like, well, I came up with this topic and I want to like stick to it because I like my original topic, and that never works out. Yeah. It never does, like realistically or seldomly in the rarest cases. And as you said, that's a good thing because you get to explore different angles. You maybe explore some new aspects of a topic.
Sometimes you just have to kill your darlings.
Well, that's what it's like. Welcome to the realities of academic writing and thesis writing. Yeah, but I very much agree because even though it might feel like a setback at times, it actually very clearly shows a process of getting where you need to go. So in your specific case, did you alter your, or let's say, how many times did you keep count?
I did not keep count, but I absolutely did alter it, obviously. For me, it was mainly going into more detail. I think the original structure of my thesis actually kind of stayed the same. But soon after I began writing, I figured out that self-determination, like I kind of hinted at earlier, is not accurate enough to describe the development of all these female characters throughout both novels, especially with like different historical contexts. So I brought in the aspect of self-actualization, which sounds similar, but it's very much a different thing. And I did also have to then in my writing process redefine self-actualizations because the kind of definitions that were out there, they weren't useful.
Yeah.
So yeah, I altered it in the way that I made it longer and longer and longer. But in order to be more specific.
Yeah. That makes sense. I think that's the case for for a lot of people and for a lot of theses that we write. Yeah, but it's fascinating, especially considering the topic that you chose.
And now I feel like I have talked a lot. So, Paulina, I'm going to ask you a question now.
Oh, yay.
Can you maybe walk us through a little bit of why we're doing this whole spiel right now?
You mean why we're talking about this on the show?
Yes.
Makes sense.
Because what on earth does thesis writing, which is incredibly like broad and like you said, can even like apply to high school students. It's not like a university specific thing. What does that then have to do with American studies specifically?
Yeah, that's a really important question. I mean, it might seem obvious to some listening because it's like, yeah, I'm an American studies major perhaps, and I do have to write a thesis to complete the study program. So obviously it's like a part of what we do. But yeah, actually there's no singular answer, and there's several aspects that kind of play into this. For one, and this is one of our favorite terms of all time, and you will know this from last season, critical thinking skills.
Oh, Lord.
We're officially back, guys. Welcome to season 2. No, but it is, I mean, critical thinking skills, this is something, in my head, and I don't know if there's people listening who are in their master's who have completed a bachelor's degree, even if not in American studies. My bachelor's thesis was such a big step. I mean, you evolve throughout your first degree, but it's like going through that process of writing your final thesis
is that final stepping stone.
Yeah, and like tackling a larger project more or less alone. I mean, you're never completely alone, and don't make that. I don't want to make that sound like it's you're on your own, kid. You have to. That was not a Taylor Swift reference. I mean, it was technically, but it's. But you know what I mean. But it's. I feel like, in terms of critical thinking skills and also structured working, just that process of getting through that, those are important parts of also just American studies as a discipline. And now getting back to Taylor Swift, as I so cleverly teased just now, inspiration can find you anywhere. I mean, Morrison, for example, some might consider it to be a classic choice.
It is. I'm not going to lie about that, but
but and especially here in Mainz, you could literally write about Taylor Swift.
Yes.
Anything that comes to mind. We actually have a reel up on our Instagram. It was thesis ideas on like surrounding the broad topic of Taylor Swift, like the brand and her music and everything. So if you haven't seen that, go go take a peek, because there's truly, even if we take something like Taylor Swift just as a pop culture phenomenon, there's so many different angles to look at this from. So yeah, inspiration literally is anywhere, especially in American studies.
And you mentioned that especially here in Mainz and at the Obama Institute, because first of all, our lecturers have such a wide range of like experiences throughout just like all the people there, that you will find someone who will work with you on that. Yeah. Whatever it might be, early American studies to like the weirdest, most obscure contemporary pop culture references, you will find someone. I don't know. I have a very good friend who got her inspiration from The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, and she wrote her bachelor thesis on it, on like feminism in the Mormon church, and then Utah specific, ending with like the development, and then ending with Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. I'm not even kidding, and it was amazing.
It is. That's such an amazing topic.
It is. It's great. So when I'm saying you can do it all here in Mainz, you can do it all here in Mainz.
Make all your dreams come true. No, but for real, I mean, shout
out to Pia, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. I'm almost scared of mentioning this, but I am working on a paper. I'm working on a paper right now that originally started because I'm approaching. So the origin of everything was aging studies and kind of how age gap relationships in contemporary romance, more specifically and how masculinity is constructed in certain narratives. And it started with 50 Shades of Grey, which at this point we can say is a cultural touchstone because it's been around. It's a huge reference point for a lot of things.
With all the movies and the franchise.
Yeah. And then now this is where it gets kind of... just bear with me, okay?
It is insane, you guys.
If anyone out there listening, if the words Morning Glory Milking Farm ring a bell, first of all, I hope you're okay. I hope you're doing fine. When it comes to myself, I'm not sure yet, but hear me out. I listened to the audiobook. It didn't have anything to do with my paper or academia or anything. But while listening to it, I was like, wait a damn minute, because the parallels to 50 Shades of Grey
are
and
so
exactly
obvious.
that angle that I wanted to approach in my paper were so on the nose. And I had, I think, like a day or two when I just let it fester in my head, and I was like, can I can I do this?
I think I spit out my drink when you told me.
Let's just say, by the time of recording this, I have ordered the book. I have my highlighters ready. I have my working thesis. I have my working title. I'm in too deep. This is happening.
She cannot turn back. And by the time that this airs, it will have been a 1.0 paper.
It will.
Yes.
It's real now. So all of this is to say that, first of all, again, inspiration can find you anywhere. And secondly, can I just mention one more important thing on this whole milking farm thing? This semester...
We said that too many times in this podcast.
Even one time is too many times.
Yeah, too many times.
But just this semester, we have, like, all of the classes we have are incredibly important and serious topic-wise. American democracy, civil rights movement, all of these things.
History of democracy.
And then there's this one class where I can, where I have the chance to go like into pop culture and into something that's fun and crazy and a little bit. If that's something that genuinely, if there's motivation in that for you, if there's passion in that for you, for a final thesis, and now we're kind of tying back to, the whole episode topic and the thesis writing and everything. And this is one thing that we haven't mentioned, but we probably should before wrapping up, is that motivation is something that I think is crucial.
Absolutely.
For a thesis topic. Because I've talked to people, also not in American studies, like other study programs that they're in. And they're like, I'm working on my thesis, but I'm just like not feeling it. Yeah, and the topic is like, and I'm like, choose something that you like. That's so important.
It is,
right?
because you have to spend months with it. If you love it, you can even develop it further into a master thesis, or like if you love your masters, you can develop it into like a PhD thing if you want to stay in academia, or just more papers, go to conferences, whatever. But having that passion and not being sick of your own writing after like 2 weeks, it's so important.
Yeah.
It's essential, really.
How long, just real quick, because we're running out of time, how long do you think you spent on your bachelor's thesis, just like in total? How many months?
I wrote it very, very fast. I'll have to admit that. It took me like, I think, 1 month, 1.5 months to just write.
Yeah.
However, from the time I first encountered A Mercy to the time I had my oral exam, that was over a year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think for me, from the time I started my just like research on a very basic level to the time I submitted it, at least 7 months, which is over half a year. So, and I know people who have been also working on that longer, like over a year too or something. So, yeah. Bottom line, choose something that you like.
That you can spend that amount of time with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I
said it.
I said it. I think our time is up for this episode. But this was a fun one. I still can't believe we're actually back and we get to do this a second time.
I know. And This is so crazy. But also, I think today the topic didn't even feel so dry,
Yeah,
if I do say so myself.
I hope we didn't scare anyone away with the episode title. Like, oh, thesis writing. Nope, gonna skip that one. If you didn't, we're glad.
Yeah.
That
Thank you for still being here
with us. Yeah. And hopefully we did an okay job breaking it all down to you.
Yeah. And now I think before we go, just like in our first season, new episodes of this will drop every other week. And of course, we will post a little teaser for each upcoming episode. So follow our Instagram. Never miss an update.
Never miss the updates. Because we have great guests and episodes lined up for you. So subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already on whatever platform you're using. And and we'll see you or speak to you. Shout out to Christine this time. Really, a lot of shout outs to this episode. I'll dial it down for next episode, I promise. Speak to you in the next one. Exactly. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Make It Make Sense is the official podcast of the Obama Institute for Transnational American Studies at JGU Mainz, Germany. This podcast is hosted by Marlene Winkler and Paulina Schlosser and edited by Paulina Schlosser. We're recording at the sound studios of the Zentrum für Audiovisuelle Produktion at JGU.
For more information on us, check out our website and don't forget to always keep up with us on Instagram at Obama Institute. Thank you for listening.